All right, so now we're in the cabling portion of this video. So we're just gonna sort everything, make it look a little bit nicer, and then connect everything correctly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and line this cable up on the rear fan right through here so that we don't see it so much. And I'm gonna go ahead and slide it through the hole right up here. That way it hides that cable just a little bit. And turning this around, we can see all these cables coming around everywhere, and we will deal with them shortly. So now I'm gonna go ahead and feed the front panel cables right up here. The USB 3, USB, and the front panel IO. Now the HD audio, that's gonna go around back here, and I'll go ahead and do that now. Now your board might be different. You're gonna wanna slide it in, of course, where it is on your particular board. I'm just sliding it in there just for right now. And USB 3, actually what I'll do is I'll feed through right over here, since it will be over here. Now, cool thing about this case is, of course, I've installed the liquid cooling unit up on the top of the case. I kind of reversed the way the fan should have been. The fan should have been underneath the liquid cooling unit, especially for a push-pull, although we don't have enough space for a push-pull. But regardless of that, if we didn't want to install it up at the top and we didn't want to install it up here in the front, we could have installed it right up here on the flip side and have the fans facing this way and have the air exhausting through the back of the case, because the solid side panel does have holes here for either pulling air in or sucking air out. But again, I've installed it up at the top. These two cables, we're gonna go ahead and slide down here. I forgot. I have a USB 3.0 header right down here. So what I'll do is I'll feed this USB 3 cable right through there. Actually, let's just connect the HD audio right up here. All right, so you can see these pins right over here. Now, it could be in a different place for your particular motherboard, but on the EVGA Z370 FTW board, it's right down there. And we're going to want to put this hole right over here, this blocked off hole right over here. The second to last pin has an open hole. So we'll just go ahead, plug that in, easy enough, and then just pull that cable out to make it look a little bit nicer. I'm going to go ahead, start from the right towards the left, and I'm going to plug in the front panel header that controls the HD LED or the SSD activity light, the power LED, the reset switch, and the power switch. Right down here, you're going to notice there are a few markings. And again, it will be motherboard specific. You can see HD LED over here, RST for reset, power LED. So let's just go ahead and connect power LED first. And then you'll see on there the markings to tell you what's positive, what's negative, because there are positive and negative ends right over here. Okay, positive is on the right. All right, that is connected. I'm not gonna go into a whole lot of detail on this because, again, it is motherboard specific. So if you don't have this exact motherboard, it won't work for you. It'll be a different way. And now we'll connect power switch. Okay, and HD LED, same thing, negative and positive. And then reset switch. All right, so now we'll just go ahead and pull that excess just so that it looks a little bit nicer and get some cables out of my way. And now we'll go ahead and connect the USB 3.0 header. Now you'll notice there's a notch right in here, a little raised level right there, but that isn't back here. There's two on both sides, but nothing in the middle. You'll notice there is one up here and then two down here. So that tells you which way to plug in this USB 3 header. Easy enough. Now, even though that header is easy to plug in, it comes off like nothing. Incredibly easy to come off. Just make sure once you have it, don't move it. All right, and last but not least, the USB connection. And the same thing, you'll notice the very first one on the bottom is missing a pin. And on this cable, you see there's a blocked off pin right there. So we'll go ahead and match that up. Just slide that into place. And again, just pull that excess cabling out of the way. All right, so far the bottom is all cabled up, which again, the bottom is the front panel and it looks nice. So now since we know we're gonna have two SSDs, we're just gonna go ahead and plug in the SATA cables. Just make sure wherever you plug in an M.2 PCIe SSD, on most boards, it will deactivate one, if not two of the SATA ports. So before you plug in those cables, verify with their motherboard manual which cable it is, and then that way you can just plug it in the opposite one. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in right here, and then one right behind it. Okay, easy enough. And we could go through here, but I want to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide it right down through this hole. And that way I can just angle the cables just like this. But we're not gonna make things look pretty just yet. We're just going to make things function. I'll make it look pretty off camera and then come back when I'm done, but we still have a lot of work to do. So let's continue. Okay, so now the next thing we have, since we're done installing everything here that's going to get in the way, we're gonna go ahead and install the video card. All right, so to install the video card, first off, we're gonna go ahead, turn the system around, and we're going to want to unscrew this screw. This screw is holding this retention mechanism in place, which will stop us from removing these PCIe slot covers. Okay, now we're gonna need to verify what slots we're going to need to remove. So I can see that the top slot is going to go to the PCIe by 1. So I'd be removing the second and the third PCIe slot. One thing you might notice, if you have any more than maybe one video card or another device down here, is that these slot covers, they're not like these top 3 slot covers. These, once you push them off and just take them off, you cannot put them back on. So the good thing is at least you have up to 3 slot covers that you could take off from here from your video card and cover here if you ever needed to, or of course you can buy some online. So this particular card takes up 3 slots. So I'll be taking off the top 3 PCIe slots, or should I say second, third, and fourth. Which gives me the perfect opportunity to show you how this gets removed. So first off, just push it in. Now do it carefully because you might have a capacitor or something right along the side here of your motherboard. And the last thing you want to do is break it because you have to take this off. Thankfully, I don't have anything there, so I can just and take it off. Again, we have the EVGA GeForce RTX 2080 XC Ultra card. Now, with any video card, you're going to want to hold the card up straight like this, slide it to where those PCI slots are that are uncovered now, and then push it towards that PCIe slot and just push it all the way so that this locking mechanism snaps into place. All right, easy enough. You've installed the card. Obviously we have to screw it in, but let me zoom in real quick so that you see how that works a little bit better. So first off, I'm gonna push this in to pull the card out, and now I'll pull the card in. This locks the card into place. So if I'm installing it, line up right up here, and then I'll match the PCIe fingers right into there and just push in. Again, you're going to notice this little lever kind of pop up, snap into place. And now the card is locked in. Okay, now that we have the card locked in place, we're going to want to line up the card with these screw holes right over here. Okay, so now you're going to want to hold up the back of the card here and line up the screw holes right over here. And the reason I say hold it up here is to help prevent card sag. Hold it up right over here where the card would normally sag, then push inwards towards the back of the case, lining up where the holes are going to meet right over here. And then we'll go ahead and screw the middle one. Okay, now still holding the card, we're going to want to screw in the bottom one. Now, if we only had two, we would screw in the bottom one first. Okay, now at this point, we can let go of the video card and just screw in the last screw. All right, so heavier cards are going to sag a little bit more, and the way I just showed you now is going to help prevent that. And now we'll just go ahead and put that slot cover back into place. You'll notice right up here, there's a little hole along with down here. And then there's a little lip right up here. I'm going to slide that right into the lip so it's holding there. And then the bottom, I'll slide that into place as well. So now it acts as a door. And now I can just screw in that screw back over here to help, again, retain that. Perfect. Now let's get back to the cabling. All right, now zooming out just a little bit because we're going to go ahead and just start routing some cables. We're first going to put the 8-pin EPS CPU power right up here because that is where my 8-pin EPS cable goes, on the top right-hand corner or left-hand corner of the board. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it under here and then slide it right through this hole. And right now, again, that is just for preparation. So it doesn't matter how nice and neat it looks right now. Okay. Now, before I get any deeper, you'll notice right here, here, a few places on the case, there are these little grooves where later on when you're done cabling and you want to sort your cables, you can just put a zip tie through right here. And that'll help retain your cables, and they're scattered all around the back of the case, which is great. We're gonna go ahead and grab the PCIe cables. Now, these might be a little more difficult to route, but it looks like we're gonna be able to fit this cable through the same hole where we're going to fit these SATA cables. Now, sadly, since this is maybe 7 years old, this power supply, it does have these ugly colors, so please don't judge my cable management based on the colors of the cable. Unfortunately, because of the drive cage, I can't fit that in there. So what I'll end up doing then is just maneuvering all these cables out of the way, and I'll just go ahead and slide it in here for now, and I'll clean that up in a little bit. The next big ugly cable is the ATX 24 pin. This is what provides power to the motherboard itself, and will be up here as well. So I'll slide this through here for now, just for better cable management. And I'm just putting in a bend there, that way it holds in place. The liquid cooling unit requires SATA power. I'm going to put these SATA power cables here for right now, and I will move them around just in a little bit. And then of course, the SATA drives we need, they're going to require power as well. Now, because we moved them the way we did, it will make things a little bit more challenging. So I'm just gonna go ahead, take this drive out, pop it down here. I'm gonna put it in a tray. Okay, so I'll do that off camera. So now that we have that in place, we're gonna go ahead and just turn the case around and then plug in all the power where it needs to go on the inside of the board. All right, so we're gonna start off, and let me move this out of the way, with the ATX 24 pin right up here. And you'll notice there is a little latch right over here, same latch that's right over here, so that tells us how we need to plug it in. All right, so that's plugged in perfectly right there. So now I'm gonna plug in the 8-pin EPS connection right up here. It's gonna be an incredibly tight fit, so I'm gonna do that off camera. It might cost me a few drops of sweat and everything, and some frustration. So give me a second. All right, so I did end up having to remove the liquid cooling unit to plug in that 8-pin EPS cable. But either way, after I removed it, it was incredibly simple and quick. I also took a moment to turn the liquid cooling around. That way, instead of having the tubes coming in over here, I just move them over here. Makes it look a little bit nicer. And then that way there isn't that huge bend that's gonna impede the liquid flow a little bit. It's not gonna stop it. It's just not gonna be as smooth as it is now. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and connect the PCIe cables for the video card. So the first one I'll connect is the 8-pin, and easily enough, the 6-pin. Now this is from a single cable, but it provides enough power. It's meant to provide enough power. It usually is better to have 2 separate cables, especially if you don't have one that has 2 on there. That way to provide more than adequate power to the system. So now all we have left to connect is the liquid cooling unit and the fans, and then at that point it's just up to me to make things look pretty. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is going to be where we connect into CPU fan number 1 up here. This is for the liquid cooling unit. Okay, easy enough. And then we're going to just tuck away the excess back here to the back of the case. It is a solid side panel. You can be as messy as you want through there. Some people like to tidy it up. I'll tidy it up. Okay, and now this is SATA power that's going to be for the pump. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just slide this back here in the little hole. Okay, it looks like it might not fit there, so I'll just slide it through here, and that's okay. Chances are nobody will notice that cable. Again, I'll make it look pretty a little bit later on. And then we'll go ahead and feed these 2 cables. These 2 cables are going to allow these 2 fans along the top of the radiator to connect down to here, which will receive power from the SATA connection for the liquid cooling unit. So turning her around. All right, so now I'm unscrewing the hard drive tray again, not because I need to move it, just because I want to organize some cables. So what I want to do is slide like this cable and these cables just above the hard drive tray to help them get out of sight. All right, so now we'll go ahead and connect the SATA drives, at least for data, just tucking them in between each other, and then I'll clean that out a little bit later on. Okay, and now for power. For power, I'll be using these SATA power connectors. You'll notice there's a little bit of an L here going up and then across here. The power connectors over here will be the same. The same thing went for the SATA data cables. So just make sure you pay attention when you plug that in. And now I'll just hide those cables. Again, right now, I'm not looking to make it look pretty, just to connect it for you guys. You're all gonna have your own methods of making it look pretty, and the case will also dictate that. We're going to go ahead, grab another SATA power connector, and then connect that right up here all by itself. It's unfortunately not long enough to reach down here through the SATA power for the drives, but we'll make that look pretty a little bit later. And then for the fans, we'll just connect that here and here. And now this one for the rear fan, we'll just go ahead, feed back in through the hole. So one sec. I originally just fed that in there to put it away just for now. Okay, and then you might be able to tell there's another fan power connector right up here. So I'm gonna connect this 3-pin header to that right up there. Okay, easy enough. And now I'll feed that back through here, right up here, and just pull it out of sight. At this point, everything in the case is connected. I'm going to pause the video, make everything look nice and pretty, because again, based on your power supply and the cables, it's going to be different than mine. So I'm gonna go ahead and connect everything, make everything look pretty. Well, it already is connected, but I'm just gonna make everything look pretty and I'll be right back. All right, my friends, so this is the completed build after I made everything look pretty. Just before I made the cut, everything was connected, everything worked. It just didn't look pretty, and I didn't want to waste a whole lot of your time, so I just did that off camera. So we can see here the way the cables are routed, a little tiny bit messy back here, but again, it is the back. Then the EPS cable along with the power cable for the rear fan come down here. That cable wrapped back up around here and just connected to the motherboard. Then we have the EPS 24 pin coming down along here, routed along the side. Then over here coming down, we have the power for the liquid cooling unit coming down, fed into the ATX 24 pin cable. Coming down here, we can find the power cable for the SATA power up here coming down. And then routing from inside of the case, we'll find the PCIe cable that comes into the same strand. And then in here, we have the 2 SATA data connections coming down along the cross, feeding down but outside of a loop into the 2 SSDs. And then we have the ATX and the PCIe cable just kind of tucked away in between the power supply and the cage. Then we have some of the excess PCIe cables tucked underneath the SSD trays, as well as the power cables for the SSDs right over here. And then the front panel connections wrapped around here, coming up around the front, coming out through the top of the case. I wrapped them around here because up in the front, you can kind of see them bundled right over here. Mind you, once I put the back panel on, you won't see that anymore. And I could hide it a little bit more, but I don't want to tug too much on those cables. Then we can see on the inside here, everything is nicely tucked away. I did have to flip around the liquid cooling unit in order to have the cables coming from here to now come from up here, which gets rid of a little bit of a kink I had in there, which would make the liquid cooling unit not cool as well. If this cable does not drop some more, settle itself, I'll probably end up zip tying it to this other cable over here. Not tight, just very loose. That way they stay a little bit more together. And then over here you can see the 2 PCIe power cables, which mold into that one cable running along the back. Again, it's an older power supply, so it doesn't look as pretty, but it is functional. We have down here all those front panel IO cables perfectly tucked away into the power supply shroud. Then over here we have a little bit of the power supply exposed, the Cooler Master 1200 watt Silent Pro. This makes it a little bit easier so that you know what kind of power supply you have in here. Mind you, it would be better if it were more back here, but that looks a whole lot nicer, a whole lot cleaner. And I may at some point remove that filter up in the front, and I'll tell you in my final review video just exactly how to get rid of them without actually just ripping them apart. There is a way. You can see along the back here, we have the power supply, the 2080 XC Ultra, and then of course the motherboard over here, and the 120 millimeter fan that came included with the case, the Raijintek Ponos, coming along the back. So let me go ahead and put the side panel back on real quick. And then now with the side panel back on, minus all the fingerprints, we can see right up front here, it does look a little bit nicer because it is a little bit darker. And now I mentioned it earlier, but again, I want to mention it, is not only can you put a liquid cooling unit up here or up in the front, but you can actually put a liquid cooling unit right up here. Now, it might run into your video card if your video card is a little bit longer. In this case, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have been able to fit it in there, but it is cool that that is an option. But you can see now on this side just how much nicer it looks like with the back side panel on. So let me go ahead and put the glass on there real quick. All right, so now aside from the reflection, we can see here just how beautiful this case looks like, even with the tempered glass on. Now, you'll notice massaging outwards, I push the case and then I put the screw in. That way I keep it from bending and just make it everything look perfectly straight. Now that's even more important with tempered glass. You want to make sure there are no bends, nothing bulging out even the slightest. This is glass, even though it's tempered glass, it's meant to be stronger. You don't want those bends or those bulges that could end up in broken glass. Go ahead and leave some comments down below what you think about this overall build. And then coming up next, I'm going to be doing an overall review of this case, how it works, my experience with it. Obviously, I just built it right now. I haven't even powered it on. I don't know how it works, but I'm going to let you know the temperatures and overall how everything works, the build, the overall quality. I'd love to get your feedback and your thoughts. Again, showing you how to build and how to cable inside of the Raijintek Ponos TG Case. Iggy out. See you guys.
Disclaimer, this product was provided to the author to do a review. All opinions are 100% authors and authors alone. For more information, visit bit.ly/dbdisclose. To have your product or brand showcased on Dragon Blogger, visit bit.ly/reviewmyproduct. Thank you for watching.